Rarely has the balance of talent between the Eastern and Western Conference been as pronounced as it has been over the past few seasons. Although the Heat had the privilege of sitting on top of the NBA pile for 2 years straight, their journey to the finals has been more of a walk in the park in comparison to the gauntlet that Dallas, OKC and San Antonio have had to trudge through in the West to make their ways to the NBA Finals. Some perspective. Just to give this divide some perspective, of the 9 teams to finish last season with 50 or more wins, only 2 of those teams came from the Eastern Conference. Even more astonishing, the Dallas Mavericks, who narrowly scraped through to the playoffs despite winning 49 games, would have finished third to the Pacers and Miami Heat in the East. Considering of a team's 82 regular season games only 30 are played outside of their conference, there is a high chance the Mavericks could have won the East handsomely had they been that geographically positioned. Waiting for the pendulum to swing, so this got me wondering as the past season came to a close, how long will we have to wait before the pendulum swings back, and the East regain some form of dominant stature? Or at the very least be able to match the talents out West? Up until things started to heat up during free agency, I imagined it was going to be a long time coming, especially if Carmelo and LeBron were to take their talents to the West Coast as many predicted, but in the wake of LeBron's decision a handful of trades have given the East the bolstering it needs to help tilt the scales back to an even plane and restore some balance across the conferences. Changes at the top with a few alterations in the personnel in Miami and Indiana, a returning MVP, an 11-time champion playing puppet master to execute the triangle offense, and the revival of a 90s expansion franchise. There will be a few more horses in the race at the top of the Eastern Conference this coming season. Miami Heat. Even with LeBron moving to Cleveland, Miami are still a top 5 team in the East. Signing Luol Deng, Danny Granger and Shea Napier will be a nice boost to their depleted roster, and with Bosh and Wade at the helm they won't be a team to be taken for granted, even if they did lose the best player in the world. At least now Bosh will be considered more of an asset rather than the third wheel he became to Wade and LeBron's bromance, but to get the most production out of Bosh, Spoelstra needs to move him from center where he has been played for the past 2 seasons and back to his natural comfort zone as a power forward where he's more likely to put up the big numbers he did while in Toronto. Charlotte Hornets. The Pacers gave up Lance Stevenson to the Charlotte Hornets this off-season, making them a team to watch in my opinion after showing some grit and team chemistry in their playoff performance last season. A rebrand from Bobcats back to the Charlotte Hornets of the 90s and adding Lance Stevenson to their arsenal, who was arguably the best performer for the Pacers in the playoffs. They will no doubt turn some heads again this season. Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron's decision to return to Cleveland has put the Cavs back on the list of title contenders, especially with veteran sharpshooting additions like Mike Miller and potentially Ray Allen, an all-star point guard in Kyrie Irving, and if they manage to sort a trade that involves Kevin Love they will have no troubles sitting on top of the East. They'll be a 50-plus wins team without really breaking a sweat. Milwaukee Bucks. Although they're not going to be delivering any exciting results this season, the Bucks have made good use of their worst record to snap up the number 2 overall draft pick Jabari Parker, who was considered the most NBA-ready player of this year's draft and was picked with the belief he has the potential to be the cornerstone of their rebuilding process. So depending on how their young roster develops and their trades transpire next year, the Bucks could be a team to keep an eye on over the next coming seasons. Chicago Bulls. The return of Derrick Rose, the face of the franchise, 2014 NBA Defensive Player of the Year Joakim Noah, and the addition of high-scoring Pau Gasol and three-point assassin in Nikola Mirotic from Madrid will undoubtedly give the Bulls their most formidable roster since they reached the Eastern Conference Finals in 2011. Since Rose's back-to-back season-ending injuries, the Bulls have struggled on the offensive side of the floor and depended solely on their defensive prowess and grinding out games to stay afloat in a struggling Eastern Conference. Now they should be looking like a juggernaut on both ends of the floor. With Noah and new addition Gasol in the front court, they already have a huge advantage over many teams with this kind of caliber big-to-big passing talent. The Bulls now sport a 6 decision-making arsenal who are all able pass and or score at a high level with Rose, Noah, Gasol, Mirotic, Dunleavy and McDermott. The Bulls will have no problem scoring the basketball and notching at least 50 wins this season. New York Knicks. The Knicks have managed to lift and disappoint their fans on countless occasions since I don't know when, but since the Zen Master, Phil Jackson, was hired as the president of basketball, it feels like it's a little different this time. Although he won't be in direct control of coaching the team, there's a high chance he will be pulling the strings of the newly acquired rookie head coach Derek Fisher, molding him into a triangle offense master, maybe minus the pre-game joss stick ritual in the locker room. Now that Jackson managed to persuade Melo to stay in the Mecca, he has his elite isolation scorer that he had in Jordan and Kobe before they were taught the triangle. I guess watch this space as Phil Jackson continues to pull the strings on this franchise that has been in desperate need of a title for the past 4 decades. I was going to write a little on the hopes I had for the Indiana Pacers, but Paul George has just been dealt a broken leg from the FIBA hoop stand during a Team USA scrimmage, which will see him out for the best part of, if not the entire season. Not to mention they've sent the most effective player Lance Stevenson off to Charlotte. Suffice to say their year will be worse than the dry spell they suffered after the All-Star break. The Miami Pacers rivalry was short-lived and has now managed to fizzle to nothing during this off-season. Washington Wizards. Last season the Wizards took everyone by surprise with their playoff performance. After quickly disposing of the Chicago Bulls in the first round, they then managed to push the top-seeded Indiana Pacers to 6 games, putting the Eastern Conference on edge and proving that they won't be the team that sulks at the bottom of the conference any longer. Over the last 2 years they have made some well-calculated trading decisions with the intended and successful outcome of putting together a formidable roster for now and seasons to come. After trading Trevor Ariza to the Rockets this summer, the Wizards acted fast and smart when signing the 16-year veteran Paul Pierce, who has definitely been, done and seen pretty much everything during his time in the NBA, and he will play an integral role in the development of John Wall and Bradley Beal as a mentor-type figure. Wall has shown last season that he is worth every cent that he is paid and promisingly still has a lot more room to go before he reaches the ceiling of his potential. Although they won't be topping the conference anytime soon, they could be challenging for a division title and looking to push further into the playoffs. Disparity remains okay, so the league is still a little lopsided and remains tilting to the west, but this season the East is starting to level out with some parity across the board opposed to previous seasons where it's just been a 2-horse race. There are no real dominate teams as there has been of late, which means the East could be wide open this season. Sure, the Cavaliers and Bulls will more than likely be topping the conference, but the gap between second place and third, fourth, fifth and sixth will be far from the gaping void that it has been.